The shrill metallic buzz of the bell rang across the warehouse floor as the gray light of dawn bled in from the high, grimy windows. As always, a hush followed. Then an undertow of muttering and shuffling. Foreman White strode out, his steps echoing on oil-stained concrete. He barely looked up. I was already a step ahead, brush and old drop cloth stashed in my battered duffel under the welder's break table. By now, every hand in that factory knew my routine. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I'd leave my locker untouched when the bell went and head straight for the rusted roller door before anyone else. That drew their eyes. That and the flecks of Prussian blue and ochre beneath my fingernails, staining my cuticles like a bruise I could never scrub away. White flagged me down. I saw the way his lip curled. "Malone," he said. "You're not on cleanup?" I shrugged, polite. "Done my share last night, boss." He didn't nod. He kept watching, waiting. Behind him, blokes from the machine shop were pretending not to listen. Jonesy, with his grubby cheeks, spat on the floor and gave me that slow, sideways smile. The endless judgment. "All right," White said, dragging each syllable. "I hear your, what is it, painting club is on tonight? Don't let me see you making a mess in the toilets again. Not your Candace. You won't." I zicked my duffel. "Thanks." His eyes drilled into me, cold and contemptuous. But I slipped out before he could say more. I could feel the weight of the others, their words prickling the back of my neck. Out on the street, Sydney in early morning looked washed out and half-built. The horizon was a thin strip of lilac over the Epping Towers, and the air stung in my lungs. I started walking along the tram line, hands deep in my pockets. In that long, empty hour between night and 9, the city felt like something unfinished, waiting to be discovered. It wasn't the work I minded. It was the stripping away, day after day, of all softness and possibility. It was the looks, the joking. "When's the big gallery show, Malone? Got your ticket to Paris yet? That pays better than the Boiler Room." And always, "Who you trying to be, some kind of genius?" I knew what they thought. I heard it at home, too. My mother's kitchen was always warm, but sharp with the smell of citrus cleanser and disappointment. She'd barely mask her annoyance when I pattered in after a shift, tracking in dust. She'd look at my paint-splotched pants and shake her head. "Sean, you're grown. When are you going to get over this? We need your help here, not your doodles." My brother would grunt from over his laptop. "It's not the Louvre," he'd mutter. "You know that, right?" For a time, I forced myself to answer. To explain how, for me, there was nothing clearer than the rush of pigment on fresh canvas, the way a broad slash of burnt sienna could turn a blank square into a memory, the way light lived inside a brushstroke. But the words choked me every time. All my life I talked too softly, felt it too much, and for a time I tried to be what they needed. I clocked every overtime shift. I let my brushes dry out in the drawer. I became another set of tired hands at the table. You can only do that so long. A hunger builds. So I started painting in secret. At first, it was in my childhood room. After midnight, knees pressed under the wobbly desk. I'd prop up bits of cardboard washed white with leftover emulsion, borrowing Mom's groceries money to buy student oil tubes at Art on King. Always quick, always quiet. Even then, though, I painted what mattered. The cluttered street corners of Parramatta, the way light slicked around clotheslines at dawn, my father's coat draped over the back of a plastic chair. Paint made sense of things no one else could explain. The problem was, everyone could tell I wanted more than painting. I wanted a different life, a different self. That was unforgivable, where I came from. By morning, after every surreptitious painting spree, I would feel half alive and raw. At the factory, I burned with it, fury and shame, hope and defiance. I bottled it down. And yet, every time someone laughed, Oi, Da Vinci, new masterpiece on the way? Something inside me sparked and seethed. Rage, yes, and that peculiar, hateful restraint that comes when you realize how little power you have. One afternoon, 2 weeks after my 23rd birthday, the thing boiled over. It was a Thursday, sky the color of dirty tinfoil, and the factory radio squawked the rugby scores. I'd been up late painting, a piece I called 2-minute window, just the chalky facade of our flats, sunlight raking across bruised concrete. I thought I might enter it somewhere, if I could afford the fee. White caught me staring at my bandaged finger instead of the production chart. His nostrils flared. Malone, maybe if you spent more time working and less time daydreaming? The others heard. They snickered. Jonesy, as always, he's thinking up his next masterpiece. Reckon the Archibald needs another portrait of his own ugly mug. They all laughed, and I, standing there with steel shavings in my hair, wanted to smash the clipboard over their heads. Not because of cruel words, but because I knew, deep as blood, what it meant to keep being dismissed. I took a deep breath and said nothing. Rage radiated out through my fingertips, into my palm, into nothing. That's when the decision crystallized. I would leave Sydney, or at least leave that part of it. Something inside me hardened, a defiant callus forming over old wounds. For a year, I saved every coin. I worked double shifts. At night, I painted every surface I could find. Old bits of plywood, glass, abandoned cabinet doors. I entered competitions, sent cold emails, braved the snickers at home. Most went unanswered. Some went nowhere, but every so often a small thing clicked. A piece displayed in a community cafe, a minor commendation in a free magazine. Enough to keep hope flickering. Finally, the night after my father's birthday, an evening heavy with old jokes and bitter silences, I walked into the lounge room while the news blared and told them the truth. "I'm going," I said. My voice trembled, but I didn't back down. "I'm heading to Melbourne. There's a studio offer." "And an artist's grant. I can make it." Mum set her cup down too hard. "What about us?" "It's time." My brother didn't bother looking up. "You're mad. You'll be back in a month, broke." I nodded anyway. What could I say? They would never understand that I had to do this or drown. The morning I left, Sydney was thunderous. Every street lay haloed in rain. I carry only 2 bags, one with clothes, one with my paints and battered sketchbook. I caught one last glimpse of our house, the roses drooping in their cracked plastic pots, the chipped fence, the windows streaked with condensation. On the train, I sat by the window and forced myself not to cry. Rage lingered, but beneath it came cold resolve. If my work had any worth, I would prove it. If not, I'd fail on my own terms, not theirs. Those first months in Melbourne were wrenching. The studio I rented was tiny, no bigger than a pantry, up 2 flights in a St. Kilda building that smelled of old fried rice and bleach. I washed dishes for rent, scavenged canvases from alley skips, made meals of instant noodles hoarded from discount grocers. But I painted. God, how I painted. I lost myself for hours every night, hands numb and eyes raw, capturing everything. Battered trams, bare feet on linoleum, rain spattering neon-lit alleys, the scruff on a lover's neck. I entered exhibitions and group shows, badgered local gallerists, pored over Instagram and the back pages of arts journals, hunting for cracks in the wall. Rejection was constant. One gallerist called my style unfocused, too sentimental. Another suggested, perhaps you should stick to photo references from art history. Emails came, cold and formal. Thank you, but not at this time. Each one stung, a small wound on top of all the rest. There were moments, late at night, when I'd sit with a brush poised, absently staring at the lights of distant high-rises. and wonder if they all had been right. Each night, exhaustion mounted. Every morning, my bank balance shrank. I started to imagine myself as one of those men at the factory, battered, surrendering, ghosts in their own lives. Then the luck turned, slow as the tide. I was 25, and one evening on the verge of giving up, I submitted 2 finished canvases to a group show in Brunswick, a friend of a friend, tiny but with a few critics rumored to attend. The day of the show, I almost didn't go. In the end, I arrived late, washed and shaking, heart a pounding echo. My work, a portrait of a mop-haired boy feeding seagulls by the river, and a sunlit study of my father's hands, hung in the back, side by side, edges crisp against the white wall. They sold, on the spot, outright, for more than I'd made in 3 weeks at the factory. When I heard the words, "I'll take both, please, and does the artist have more?" I thought it was a joke. I found myself gripping the gallery owner's handshake like a lifeline, barely able to breathe. The collector was a lawyer, neatly dressed, gentle-eyed. She asked me to talk about my process and actually listened. After that, small miracles. My name found its way onto a short list for a regional prize. Other buyers discovered my work. A couple furnishing a new flat on Lygon. A teacher who wanted a mural for a local school. An article appeared in a minor publication. Instagram messages trickled in, suddenly, not from trolls, but from genuine admirers. I told no one at home. Instead, I painted harder and risked larger themes. Immigrant buses hurling through midnight streets, the tired faces of tradies in the morning rain, the dance of kids in a thunderstorm on King's Cross Road. My voice deepened, roughened. Rage transmuted into ambition, into relentless discipline. Another year. At first, the room filled with strangers, young artists, students, new collectors, arts journalists with quick pens and sharper gazes. A critic from The Guardian snapped photos on his phone, held court at the cheese table. I kept scanning the doorway, hoping and dreading. It was almost 10 when I saw them. My mother, her hair bluntly cut and neat, hands knotted together on her purse. My brother, who looked taller, broader, weary-eyed and skeptical. They hesitated at the entrance. Dwarfed by a painting of our block's battered letterboxes, my mother's eyes flicked over the walls. Confusion, then something else, memory maybe. "Sean?" she called, her voice uncertain. I stepped forward, wiping my hands on my trousers. "You came," I said. She gazed at me, at the walls, at a watercolor of her bent over the ironing board, the hot glow of the lamp on her brow. She reached out and pressed her fingers against the frame. For a long time, no one spoke. My brother wandered, not meeting my eye. I heard him mutter to a woman from the papers. "Yeah, he painted those. Used to do it after shifts, you know." She nodded. "Your brother's work has been shortlisted for the Solman. Did you know that?" He didn't answer, but something shifted. He went back and stood, arms folded, staring up at a portrait of Dad's battered work boots. Cracked leather, smudged laces, toes caked in red Sydney dust. Then, one of my early buyers. A middle-aged collector with fierce red lipstick cornered my mother gently.